Kale had never seen trees like these before. Their leaves glowed silver in the moonlight, and the air smelled like wildflowers and snow, even though the earth was warm beneath his feet. He stood at the edge of a vast forest, confused and alert. Moments ago, he had been in the ruins of an old bunker back home, just another lonely scavenger in the wastelands of a dead earth. Now he was here, wherever here was. Something shimmered in his palm. It was the strange stone he found, black like obsidian but pulsing faintly with blue light. The moment he touched it, the world had cracked open. A flash, a pull, and suddenly this place. Behind him, shadows moved. He turned sharply, his survival instincts kicking in. 4 cloaked figures stepped from behind the trees. Their armor looked like polished bone, and their faces were flawless. Sharp cheekbones, long hair, glowing green eyes. Elves. Kale didn't know much about ancient legends, but he knew one thing. These weren't humans. One of them raised a hand. A soft light danced from his fingers, and Kale felt his limbs stiffen. His legs locked. His arms froze. Panic crept into his chest. Human? The lead elf whispered, as if testing the word. Impossible. They'd surrounded him quickly, speaking in a language he didn't understand, though their eyes said enough. Disgust, curiosity, superiority. Kale had seen that look before from raiders and warlords. It was the look of someone who thought you were beneath them. They dragged him through the forest. The trees gave way to a glowing city, carved into cliffs of crystal and marble. Birds with golden feathers flew above, and glowing vines covered bridges that floated in the air. It was beautiful, but cold, silent, watching. In a tower filled with scrolls and glass, Kale was thrown to the floor. A woman stood behind a large table, looking over old maps. She was younger than the others, or at least seemed so. Her eyes were the color of the ocean after a storm, sharp, thoughtful. "He speaks no Elvish," one guard muttered. The woman tilted her head. "Then let's teach him," she said softly. "If he truly is a human, we may need to know why now." Kale looked up at her. His jaw was clenched, his fists shaking. He didn't like cages. He didn't like collars. And this felt like both. "Name," the woman said in broken common. Kale stared at her, silent. She stepped closer. "Name," she repeated, tapping her chest. "I am Solara." He finally answered, slow and clear. "Kale." The stone in his pocket pulsed again, stronger, brighter. Solara's eyes flickered toward it. She didn't smile, but something in her face changed. Interest? Worry? Or maybe fate? Kale didn't know yet, but he could feel it. Whatever this world was, whatever these people were planning, he wasn't just a prisoner. He was the beginning of something they didn't expect. The room they locked Kale in was high in a tower, with smooth stone walls and no windows. Only a small slit near the ceiling let in pale moonlight. There was nothing in the room but a bench and silence, yet Kale didn't feel alone. The stone in his pocket, the one that brought him here, was glowing again. Faint, soft, like it was breathing. He took it out and held it in his hand. It pulsed warm against his skin. Kale stared at it. "What are you?" he whispered. As if answering, the stone flared. A thin line of light stretched from it, hitting the far wall. The stone vibrated gently, and the line of light began to twist, shaping into a pattern, a symbol Kale didn't recognize. Then it faded. Kale frowned. A map. He stepped forward and touched the wall where the light had ended. Nothing happened, but he knew something was hidden there. The next day, Solara returned. She was alone this time, holding a tray of food and a book. She placed both in front of Kale. "You eat," she said, and then held up the book. "You learn." Kale didn't speak. He just nodded. She sat across from him, quiet, watching. Day after day, she came back. She brought more books, more food, and sometimes strange objects, rings, orbs, even pieces of old weapons. She asked him questions. Sometimes she would point at the stone he carried. "Where did you find it?" she asked once. Kale shrugged. Old ruins, he said simply. Back home. Didn't look special, but it called to me. Solara tilted her head. Only humans touched it before. Elves cannot. That made Kale pause. You mean, it's human? She nodded. Very old. From the first age. We kept it. Could not open it. That night, Kale waited until the moonlight touched the wall again. He took out the stone, letting it glow. The same light formed the same symbol. But this time, something clicked. The wall shimmered, and a small door appeared. Kale's breath caught. He stepped through. Inside was a tiny chamber, no bigger than a closet. But what was inside made his heart race. A sphere floated in the air, turning slowly. Around it, holograms flickered. Images of Earth long ago, of soldiers and cities, of machines powered by the stars. Human technology. The shard glowed brighter, and suddenly Kale understood. This wasn't just a key. It was memory. It was knowledge. He turned to leave, and froze. Solara stood at the entrance. She had followed him. They'd stared at each other, both unsure what to say. You opened it, she said softly. You really are the one. Kale nodded, his voice steady. I'm not here to fight your war. Solara's eyes met his. Maybe not, but you're already in it. Outside the tower, storm clouds gathered. The world was changing. And in the heart of it, a human held the last light of a forgotten past. The next few days passed quickly. Kale spent hours with Solara, showing her what the shard could do. It could project moving images, display old maps, and even speak in ancient human language. Solara recorded everything with wide eyes, her mind sharp and curious. But not everyone in the palace was happy. Rumors spread. A human had entered the high city. A relic had awakened. Some called it prophecy. Others called it danger. Kale felt the eyes on him, cold, judging. Guards whispered behind his back. Older elves kept their distance. He didn't belong here, and they made sure he knew it. Late one night, Solara entered his chamber, her cloak drawn tightly around her. You must leave the palace, she said quietly. Kale looked up, surprised. Why? Because the council is afraid. They think you're a weapon, or a curse. Kale stood. So what happens now? They try to kill me? Solara hesitated. If they knew what I've already shown you, yes. She handed him a map, drawn by hand. There's a hidden path beneath the cliffs. It leads to the old tunnels. Go there. Find the buried kin. Who are they? Kale asked. Solara's voice dropped. The last free humans. That name hit him like thunder. Wait, there are others. Still alive? She nodded. They live underground, hiding from us for centuries, but they've never stopped planning and waiting. Kale took the map and the shard, his heart pounding. Will you be safe? Solara smiled faintly. They'll think I failed to control you. That's what they already expect. Kale didn't say goodbye. He slipped out under the cover of darkness. The cliffs were steep, and the wind howled like a beast. But he made it to the hidden entrance Solara marked. A stone door, cracked and covered in moss, opened with a push from the shard. He entered the tunnels. It was dark, completely black. He walked for hours, guided only by the shard's glow. Finally, he heard voices. Sharp. Alert. Human. Stop there. Kale froze. Dozens of men and women stepped from the shadows, holding blades, bows, and old tech from Earth. Their clothes were rough, their faces tired, but strong. One older man stepped forward. His eyes narrowed. Impossible, he whispered. You're not one of us. Kale raised the shard slowly. I'm Kale Virek. I come from the surface. I didn't know you were still here. A younger woman stepped beside the elder. Her gaze burned with fire. We are still here, and we've been waiting. You just brought us hope. Kale didn't understand everything yet, but as they led him deeper into their hidden city, a place carved out of stone and lit by warm fires. He felt something powerful. These were his people, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't alone. In the deep halls of the buried kin, the spark of rebellion began to burn. While Kale was learning from the buried kin, Solara remained in the Elven palace, walking a careful line between loyalty and truth. Each day, she studied the old scrolls and hidden records, searching for answers the elders never spoke of. Her questions grew sharper, her thoughts louder. She had always believed the elves were the rightful rulers of the realm, wise, ancient, and noble. But Kale's arrival had opened her eyes. There was more to the story, much more. Late one night, Solara found a locked chest deep within the royal archives. It was sealed by a rune no one used anymore. With a whispered spell, she broke it open. Inside, she found brittle scrolls, old letters, and a broken silver crown. One letter changed everything. It was written by her great-grandmother, an elven queen during the last human war. The letter spoke of the final days of the battle. It revealed something shocking. The elves hadn't won the war by skill or strength. They had used stolen magic, taken from captured human mages. A dark ritual had ended the war, but at a cost. The humans had cursed them. Since that day, the elves had slowly stopped growing. No children were born in over 200 years. Their lands were fading, their magic weakening, and yet the truth was hidden from the people. The lie was simple. Humans were weak. We saved the world from them. Solara closed the scroll, her hands shaking. Her whole life had been a lie. She left the archives with a heavy heart. That same night, the council summoned her. 5 elders, cloaked in gold, sat in a half-circle. Their faces were pale, their eyes hard. "You've spent too much time with the human," one elder said. "He escaped," another added, "because of you." Solara bowed her head. "He is not the enemy. He carries knowledge we lost. We must listen." "No," the High Elder's voice cracked like thunder. "He must be destroyed before others believe him." Solara looked up. "You fear him, because you know what he carries proves the stories were false." The room fell silent. Then the High Elder spoke again, cold and low. "We built this peace on silence. We will not let a human shatter it." That was the moment Solara made her choice. She didn't return to her chambers. Instead, she slipped out under the moon, leaving behind her title, her name, and her people. Deep underground, Hale stood among the buried kin, listening as they shared their history, stories of escape, survival, and the dream of freedom. They had no leader, no plan. Until now. When Solara arrived days later, covered in dust and shadows, the humans looked at her with suspicion. But Kale stepped forward. "She's not the enemy," he said. "She chose truth over power." Solara met their eyes. "I've seen what your enemies fear, and I've seen what you've forgotten." The rebellion had begun, and now it had its first elven ally. The buried kin did not trust Solara at first. She was an elf, a member of the race that had once hunted them down. Some whispered that she was a spy. Others said she would lead the elves to their secret home. But Kale stood by her always. He remembered the look in her eyes when she had followed him into the secret chamber. She had chosen truth over comfort and danger over safety. That meant something. Together, they trained. Solara showed the buried kin how to control elven magic, light, movement, protection. In return, Kale taught her how humans fought, fast, clever, and unpredictable. Day by day, they watched each other, challenged each other, and slowly began to understand each other. One night, Kale sat near a small fire, staring into the flames. The shard rested beside him, glowing faintly as it always did now. Solara sat down beside him. "You seem far away," she said softly. Kale shook his head. "Just thinking. I don't know what I'm supposed to be." "You are Kale," she said. "That is enough." He looked at her. "You don't know what it's like. Being told your kind doesn't belong. Being forgotten." Solara's voice was gentle. "I do now. My people lied to me too. For a moment, the fire cracked and popped. Then the shard pulsed, bright and sudden. Kale and Solara both turned to it. A vision appeared in the flames. A man and a woman standing together in an ancient battlefield. The man wore old earth armor, scarred but strong. The woman was Elven, dressed in silver and green. They held hands as fire and light rose around them. "It's a memory," Solara whispered. Kale's voice was quiet. "They look like us." The vision faded, leaving behind silence. But something had changed between them. Over the next weeks, they worked as one. Solara helped Kale unlock more of the shard's secrets, ancient strategies, healing techniques, lost human languages. The buried kin watched them closely and slowly began to accept her. One evening, as a storm rumbled above the underground city, Kale and Solara stood in a training ring. Their blades clashed again and again, their moves sharper each time. They weren't just learning to fight. They were learning to trust. "You're holding back," Solara teased. Kale smirked. "I'm trying to be polite." She lunged and Kale caught her blade with his. They stood close, their breaths fast, their eyes locked. No words were spoken, but none were needed. In that moment it was clear, something deeper was growing. Not just a partnership, not just friendship. A bond forged not just by fire, but by hope. And while war was coming, Kale and Solara were no longer alone in facing it. They would face it together. Far above the tunnels, in the shining towers of the Elven capital, King Thorandor stood at the edge of a great balcony. His long cloak flowed in the wind. His face was calm, but his eyes, deep and cold, watched the mountains with sharp interest. He had heard the rumors. The human had escaped. The shard had awakened. And worst of all, Solara had disappeared. Some called it betrayal. Thorandor knew better. She had learned the truth, and now she was helping the rebels. He turned to a dark figure behind him. "Send the Watchers. Find the buried kin. Kill the human." The figure bowed and vanished into the shadows. Thorandor walked back to his throne. He passed through a golden hall filled with mirrors, but none of the mirrors reflected his true face. Behind the magic and the crown, he was not fully elven. Many centuries ago, in the final days of the Great War, a secret experiment had been performed, mixing elven blood with the essence of a powerful human mage. It was meant to create a new ruler, strong, wise, and eternal. But it had created something else. Thorandor was the result, half-elf, half-human. To the world, he was a symbol of elven perfection. But in truth, he was a curse wearing a crown. His body did not age like other elves, but it did not heal either. He needed human essence, real human life, to keep his strength. And now only one human had the key to survival: Kale. Back in the tunnels, the rebellion was growing. More buried kin arrived each day. Farmers, fighters, and scholars, people tired of hiding. Kale trained with them, shared the shard's visions, and helped them believe in a future. But Solara grew quiet. One night she sat beside Kale, her eyes filled with worry. "We found something," she said. "In the old texts." Kale leaned forward. "What is it?" She pulled out a scroll. "Your name, Vurek. It was recorded during the final war. The last mage general of the human armies was named Tavian Vurek." Kale blinked. "So, I'm related." "Yes, you are his blood. That's why the shard listens to you." Kale stood, pacing. "So that's why the king wants me. It's not just the shard." Solara nodded slowly. "He's not fully elven, Kale. He's something else. Something created." Kale clenched his fists. "Then it's time we stop hiding." In the deepest chamber of the buried kin, a council gathered. Kale stood in the center with Solara beside him. "The elves will not give us peace," Kale said. "But we don't need war to win. We need truth. We need to show the world who the king really is." The firelight flickered in their eyes. And so the plan began, not just to fight, but to expose. The cursed king ruled with fear. But Kale and Solara would fight with fire and truth. The sky over Ellerith turned dark as storm clouds gathered above the Elven capital. The Sunspire, tallest tower of the elves and heart of their power, glowed faintly in the distance. Made from white stone and enchanted crystal, it pulsed with old magic. That tower was the source of elven strength, and the key to the king's hidden power. Kale stood at the edge of the cliffs with Solara and the buried kin beside him. Below, the city lights flickered like stars on the ground. He could feel the tension in the air. This wasn't just a mission. It was the beginning of the end. "Are you ready?" Solara asked, her voice steady. Kale nodded. "Let's give them something they can't ignore." Their plan was bold. The buried kin would attack from the west, drawing out the guards. While the city panicked, Kale and Solara would slip into the Sunspire using the secret passages beneath the cliffs, ancient tunnels forgotten by most. The goal wasn't to destroy the tower, but to reveal the truth hidden inside it. As the night fell deeper, the rebellion began. From the forests came bursts of light and sound. Explosions shook the ground. Rebels stormed the city gates, shouting old war cries. Elves scrambled in confusion, trying to understand who these fighters were and how they had appeared from nowhere. In the chaos, Kale and Solara moved silently through the underground path. The stone walls were damp and cold, but the shard guided them with its soft glow. At last, they reached a door marked with an old human symbol. Kale placed the shard into a slot. The door clicked open. Inside was a chamber unlike any other, filled with glowing memory crystals, ancient books, and machines that pulsed with blue light. This was not elven magic. This was human technology, the truth buried and stolen long ago. Solara walked to a central pillar. She touched it, and the room lit up. A projection filled the air, images of the past. Elves using humans as energy sources. The dark ritual that made Therendor what he was. The fading of elven life, and the silencing of the truth. Kale spoke, his voice clear. "This is what they've hidden." Outside, the rebels lit a signal. A tall flame rose into the sky. The message was sent. Across the city, stolen devices activated. Every crystal, every mirror, every light showed the truth from the Sunspire's memory core. Elves everywhere saw it, their history rewritten, their king's lies exposed. Panic spread. Whispers became roars. In the throne room, King Therendor watched in silence. His hand trembled. For the first time in centuries, he felt fear. Back in the tower, Kale and Solara stood side by side. "It's done," she said. Kale looked at the sky. Now they have to choose, truth or tyranny. And far above, the Sunspire flickered, not with magic, but with a light no elven spell could control. Hope. The sun rose over Ellerith, but the city felt different. The shining towers stood tall, but the air was thick with change. Word of the truth from the Sunspire had spread fast. The elven people no longer whispered secrets. They spoke openly, questioning the past. In the grand hall, King Therendor sat alone on his throne. His crown felt heavier than ever. The truth of his origins, the curse he carried, and the lies he ruled with, all were laid bare. His power was fading, not because of enemies, but because of the truth. Outside, Kale and Solara stood before the gathered crowd of elves and buried kin. The tension was thick, but Kale's voice was steady. "We do not come to destroy," Kale said. "We come to build a future where elves and humans share this world, together." Solara stepped forward. "The past cannot be changed, but the future is ours to decide." Some elves shouted in anger. Others wept, but many listened. A long silence followed. Then a voice rose from the crowd, a wise elder with silver hair. "If this is the truth, then we must accept it. We cannot live by lies any longer." The crowd murmured agreement. Kale looked at Solara. Together, they had sparked something greater than rebellion. They had sparked hope. Days turned into weeks. The palace opened its doors to the buried kin. Elves and humans met as equals for the first time in centuries. Old fears slowly faded, replaced by cautious friendship. Kale and Solara worked tirelessly, helping to rebuild the broken world. They shared knowledge from the Shard and the Elven archives. They taught healing and magic, strategy and science. Yet, as peace began to grow, Kale and Solara knew their time in the spotlight was ending. One evening, beneath the stars, Kale said, "Our work is not finished. But this is where we part." Solara's eyes shimmered. "Where will you go?" Kale smiled softly. "Wherever the next light calls me." They embraced, their bond stronger than ever. Two strangers from different worlds, bound by hope and love. The following morning, the city awoke to find Kale and Solara gone. No one knew where they had gone, but their story became legend, a tale told to children and warriors alike. He came from a dead world, the old tales say, but he taught us how to live again. And in the hearts of elves and humans alike, a new age was born. A future where past enemies stood side by side. A future where the greatest power was not magic or blood, but unity. And somewhere beyond the mountains and stars, two figures walked toward the dawn, ready to face whatever came next. The world had changed forever. And it all began with a stranger who became their greatest hope.